Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Cult of Robert's Rules, or Cult of RONR if you prefer. Today's question is for January 2nd of 2020. I'm Mike Seebeck, and joining me here, as we do on all of these, is Karen Ann Harlos, who is working on getting her parliamentary second-level certification, and we can honestly tell you that if you want to be a parliamentarian, you need to be certified.
In more ways than one.
Yep. So today's question is actually a really flippin' easy one.
If I get it wrong, I'm going to be embarrassed.
You get it wrong, you should resign from the party.
Oh God!
Skip taking the examination.
A lot of people are crossing their fingers
and
now.
Go walk over to Alicia Massis and say, "I defer to your superior knowledge."
Well, to be honest with you, when it comes to Roberts, I do defer to her superior
knowledge. But in
knowledge.
this one is so much of a no-brainer. It's crazy because I think you could ask this question of most of the people in the party who's ever been to a convention or a board meeting, and they'll get it right.
Good. I'm glad I got an easy one because you got the first one wrong.
This one isn't even a slush ball. Okay, this one is a cotton ball. Okay?
God loves me. What can I tell you?
The question is the following, and you can, and if you don't want to hear the choices, just answer the answer.
No. For the benefit of the audience, we want to hear the choices.
Okay, suspension of the rules of order requires.
Oh, I know.
As I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
A 2/3 vote. B, a majority vote. C, a one member's demand. D, the chair's decision.
Well, I know the answer is 2/3.
Yes.
But I want to discuss how I would reason to that if I didn't know it.
I prefer option E, lots of beer.
Yeah. The roll of the 30-sided die. But how I would reason to that if I didn't know the answer is, rules are there to protect members. So in order to put that aside, it should have to require a high threshold. The highest threshold mentioned there was 2/3. So if I didn't know the answer and I was taking this test, I would guess 2/3. But 2/3 is often the answer on any question that requires a high threshold. The difference is we're very weird in the Libertarian Party. We have a 7/8 for existential question like the Statement of Principles.
I call that a hypermajority.
It's a hypermajority. And since that was so easy, let's talk for a second, and we'll piggyback off of yesterday's thing. What did you call it? A
hypermajority.
I think the correct term would be supermajority. Well, super majority.
Well, I consider a supermajority to be the 2/3.
It is, but in a
anything above that, I call a hyper.
But yeah, so technically, though, it's super majority. But with our quorum question,
yes.
It not only requires a super majority, it also requires a super quorum. Mm-hmm. You know that or no? Because this is what a lot of people do not know. That to amend or delete the Statement of Principles requires a super majority. Right. Everyone knows that 7/8 vote.
Right.
But normally, let's say, if something just said a 7/8 vote, what would it be 7/8 of?
7/8 of the quorum.
Well, it'd be 7/8 of the people voting.
7/8 people voting, which is determined by who's registered and present.
Right, and you'd have to at least have a 50% quorum. But the national bylaws don't say 7/8 vote. They say a 7/8 vote of all registered delegates. Mm-hmm. So it requires you have 7/8 of all registered delegates on the floor.
Which means
you can't even have the vote.
Which means you have to have a credentials report first.
Right.
Before you do a quorum call to see if you can.
And you would have to do a quorum.
You have to do both of them in order to find out what the actual numbers are to vote on that specific issue.
And typically, Robert's rules would frown on that. Because basically, I say this 7/8 super majority and super quorum rule is the parliamentary speak for saying it's fucking impossible, go home. Mm-hmm. Because, especially with libertarians, you're always going to have at least 1/8 that disagree on anything, pretty much.
And sometimes even disagreeing with themselves in the same conversation.
Yeah. Though, the Statement of Principles was passed unanimously, and I think they must have put roofies on everyone's drink at that meeting. It was 80-something libertarians that agreed, 78, I think, that agreed. Can you imagine?
Well, that's where I got the 7/8 from. They just put a slash in there.
That's interesting. That is really interesting.
We got to ask Frank Robinson about that one.
It could just all the fates line up. So yeah, so that is one instance of a super quorum and a super majority, and we protected that. last convention.
We locked the door. We threw away the key, and then we didn't bother to tell anybody where we threw the key away to. Now here's the question though. Because you're the one who came up with that proposal in the first place. Okay, when you wrote that, did you realize that it would take a credentials call, a credentials report, plus a quorum call before they even think about having the vote in the first place? Or was the goal just to do a double 7/8 door lock on the whole thing?
It was just to do a double, because since this is easy, we're gonna go here and talk about why sometimes I hate the priests of RONR. To me, it's sometimes obvious what something means, even if it's not the most gracefully worded, because sometimes you shouldn't have to have a lawyer to write your bylaws. And the early party was not very sophisticated.
Right.
They were just a bunch of brash people on fire for liberty. And it was very obvious that they meant to protect the statement of principles with a 7/8 lockdown, super quorum, super majority. So I'm just going to make up article numbers because it doesn't matter, and I'll be close. Article 3 said that the statement of principles can only be amended by 7/8 delegates, registered delegates at convention.
Right.
And then in the amendment section, it said these bylaws may be amended by, was it a 50% vote? I think it was. It might be 2/3, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say 50% because it is 50% now,
Right.
which it shouldn't be,
Yeah.
but it is 50.
That's too low.
It's too low, and Robert says that's too low. But a 50% vote at convention, and then it said except section 3. Well, it didn't say except. It should have said except. That would have been another way to fix it, by the way. I didn't even consider that. But the next article said section 3 shall only be amended by a 7. The except wouldn't have fixed it, by the way. Okay, I'm talking.
Well, actually, no. It is 2/3.
I fixed that. What? Oh, what? Nationals 2/3?
Yeah.
I thought it was 50%.
No, it's Article 17 here.
You want to know why I'm confused?
Yeah.
Because the standing rules are combined, and the standing rules is 50%.
But the bylaws override the standing rules.
Yeah, but when we're amending the standing rules, it's 50%.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Article 17, amendments.
2/3?
Number 1, these bylaws may be amended by a 2/3 vote of the delegates in the regular convention.
I could have sworn. I would have sworn.
Number 2, Article 3, Section 1,
Well, that's I fixed it.
or this section
Right.
shall not be amended by a vote of less than 7/8 of all registered delegates at a regular
Right.
convention.
That's what I put
Article
in.
3, Section 1 is the SOP.
Right, and I said, I was right, Article 3. But what it used to say was just these bylaws may be amended by 2/3, and then next sentence, Article 3 shall only be amended by 7/8.
Right.
Seems clear, right? Well, people said, hey, but it doesn't say that this article saying Article 3 can only be amended by 7/8 needed 7/8 to amend. It only needs 2/3.
And that's exactly what they tried to do in St. Louis in 2010.
And in 2008 in Denver. So this goes, well, we can by a 3 or 4 step process. And that's obviously contrary.
Yeah, the idea was, we'll change the Article 17 version to get rid of the 7/8 requirement to amend Article 3, Section 1.
And then go and gut the
then go
statement.
back and gut the statement of principles, and then turn around and reset it back to the 7/8 after the fact.
Right. And they would have succeeded in 2008. But the reason they didn't, my opinion, obviously I'm going counterfactual, is because they got overly ambitious with what they wanted to gut. If all they wanted to strike was the cult of the omnipotent state language, I think they would have succeeded.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't like that language.
Yeah.
But they also wanted to strike the Dallas Accord language. And that's why they lost.
But yet in St. Louis in 2010, they came back with the same proposal, but just getting rid of the omnipotent state language and leaving the Dallas Accord.
And it failed.
And it still failed.
Okay. Then I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I if they ever wanted to do that, but to me it revealed motivations. In 2008 was the Bob Barr. I mean, that was the low point of the party as far as I'm concerned.
I was there. I know what happened.
Yeah, everyone thinks Weld was bad. No.
Barr was worse, and to be frank, Steve Cubby saved the party that day.
It's bad. So there you go. So you learned something about quorum and the statement of principles and the Dallas Accord. And I don't think there's anything else. Well, I'm gonna have you close this out. See, you gotta like step over me because I'm a big mouth.
No, it's okay. It was a good discussion, but well, so what it comes back to is that yes, it takes 2/3 to suspend the rules, unless you say otherwise in your bylaws. Hopefully you don't, because 2/3 is plenty enough. And always remember that if your 2/3 needs suspension, get the vote, and if you're not sure, get the vote anyway, because you probably do need it. That's
And
all.
is it 2/3? So it's not 2/3 plus 1 though.
No.
It's just 2/3.
Just 2/3.
Perfect.
And if your body has an odd number of people, that makes life a lot easier. So that covers January 2nd, 2020. And we are adjourned.
Yay! Okay. These are fun.